Hello, little choir chickens. This is Mrs. G. I wanted to address some issues with musictheory.net and the theory quizzes that we've been doing. And I want to help you make sure that you're taking the correct quizzes with the correct number of questions, that you're not having to do more work than I'm actually asking you to do. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of things that I've been noticing. So the first thing that I'm going to do is show you I'm in like week 5, for example, and this is the note construction quiz that we did in week 5. When I click on the quiz link, what you should see is you should see the home button, you should see the name of the quiz, note construction, and it will say challenge mode, and you will see 3 dots. What you should not see when you are clicking on a quiz link is this gear icon here. Now, at the beginning, when I was rolling out some of these quizzes, there were some mistakes that I made in sharing some of those links and inadvertently had shared some links that didn't have time or question limits on it. So that is my fault. I also discovered that sometimes if I'm using an assignment for more than one class and I'm copying assignments from like one high school class to another high school class, not everything always stays exactly the same. I've tried to really go through very thoroughly and try to work out any bugs that people are having, but it's a lot and sometimes I miss things. So I want to help you be able to communicate to me if you run into a problem. So the first thing is, let's say just because you are bored and you feel like you want to brush up on some of your skills, there is a way to create a code, uh, a a challenge for yourself, I should say. And one of those ways is if you go to musictheory.net and you go to exercises, you can choose any of these skills here all the way down the page if you want to get super fancy. But let's say we want to do note construction. Now, what I could do is I can go in here through this gear icon and I can customize exactly how I want that to look. Now, let's say I wanted to do only bass clef because maybe that's what I feel like I need the most help on. I go back and let's say I want to challenge myself to use ledger lines in bass clef. So I'm going to expand the range that I'm using. And so questions could be all the way from down here to all the way up here. And let's say I want to do lines only because maybe I want to try to work on the lines first and then the spaces later. So I could do that if I want to, or I could do both. And let's say I want to decide whether or not I want key signatures. Okay, so maybe on this one, I don't want any key signatures. I just want to have no key signatures at all, or only natural notes showing. But if I wanted to do some key signatures, I could choose which key signatures I wanted to add. Any or all of them, even. So I could customize it that way. I can customize how I want to name the notes. Do I want them letter names, A, B, C, D, E, F, G? Do I want to use accidental words as opposed to accidental symbols? Do I want to use scale degrees like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Do I want to use solfege? Okay, so you have those options. We haven't done the solfege yet. We will, but so far we've been working on letter names because I noticed that that's what students in my classes lack. They usually do better with the solfege than they do with the note names, and I want for people to do both. So we pick our mode of naming them. I can decide whether I want helpers or not. Helpers are when the lines and the spaces are highlighted at the edge of the staff. I can choose what octave I want, or I can choose to do a highlighted range of things. So for example, if I just want to work on ledger lines or something, I could do that. Or if I want to have only certain answers be correct For example, the answer might be E, but I want only certain E's. Okay, that's something else you can customize. I can choose the difficulty level. No accidentals, diatonic notes only. Flats, sharps, and naturals allowed. All accidentals allowed. I can choose how lenient I want the answers to be. So sometimes, for example, if you've got naturals, you don't really need the accidental, but in one setting, it will mark it wrong if you put a redundant or an extra natural sign. So you could set it to strict or lenient. You can decide what you want to have happen after you do the question. Do you want it to move immediately to the next question, after you click it or tap it, or after the audio plays? That's how I've been having them set so that you can actually hear the pitch. And you can decide if you want to reset the answer. In other words, are you able to try more than once? And then whether or not you want a challenge mode. Now, what this means is you can limit the amount of time and the number of questions. Like, let's say I wanted to do a time limit of 7 minutes, and I wanted to be able to answer 20 questions within that time. And again, I can decide if I want to allow myself multiple attempts. In other words, I can keep trying until I get it right? So these are all things you can customize yourself, and then you can start your challenge, and it will be set to how you set it. All right, so the problem is if you are trying to do one of these quizzes as an assignment, I have preset all of those choices for you because I have a specific skill set that I'm trying to test you on. And what I'm running into is sometimes people are having problems. And again, part of it is my fault because I shared some links incorrectly. But some people were having problems, and what they were doing was, once they realized they had maybe gone past the number of questions I was asking for, they end the challenge, and then they get their results, or and then they send them to me. But the problem is that the settings were not what I had preset. So if you're doing this on your own, just for fun, to see, where you are with your skills, that's great. And you don't need to sign your report or do anything like that. But if you are doing it as part of the assignment, you're going to want to make sure you click within the assignment, the actual link that I give you. And if you should notice the gear icon, then stop. Don't do the quiz. I'm trying to save you a headache, okay? Stop, go back, double check that you're actually in the right assignment, that you click the correct thing. If you keep seeing the gear quiz or the gear icon, message me, let me know so I can go in and fix it. Again, I've been trying to be extra sure that I'm making corrections to any mistakes I find, but I don't always catch everything. So this is what your quiz should look like. Still has the home button, still the layout is the same, but the difference is there's no gear icon here, okay? So then you would start your challenge, and the first thing you should notice is that there's a time clock counting down. If you don't see that, what it is, it's accumulating time as you go through multiple questions, but you should see the time clock counting down, not up, okay? Because this is a time limit. So the reason why I'm addressing this again is because I had some folks do way more questions than they needed to do, again, through no fault of their own. But then also there were some folks who adjusted some of the settings, perhaps by accident, or they weren't quite sure what they were supposed to do, so they might have fiddled around within that gear icon. And the problem is that if they are doing that, they're not really getting quizzed on the correct skill set. And so they might be doing a lot of questions, but the actual skills that they're testing themselves on might be easier or harder, I guess, but easier than what I'm actually asking for. So here's some examples. This quiz was one of the note identification quizzes. It actually was one of the second note name quiz where I actually asked for us to use key signatures. So one thing that I noticed right off the bat is that there were more questions done than I asked for. So that right away tells me that the settings were not correct. Also, I had used only treble clef here or treble and bass clef, excuse me, for that note construction quiz, or for the key signature quiz. But then you can see that the key signature setting is off. So that tells me that the person, did well, got, 95% or whatever, but they weren't testing on exactly the skills that I had asked for. Now, again, I'm sure it was a mistake. This is what the note identification quiz should look like. Both treble and bass clef were being quizzed. You can see that the number completed out of the number correct, or the number completed out of the number possible, is correct, in terms of there were only supposed to be 20 questions. I can see that all the key signatures that I had set were on. I can see I had left helpers on for that particular assignment. They were accidentals and so on. All of the settings were correct. There was a question limit and a time limit. And so this is how I know that that person completed the quiz with the settings correct. So again, any of the 3 quizzes we've done so far, all is forgiven because most of that was probably my fault. I just wanted to warn you against changing the settings because that completely changes the skill set that I'm trying to see if you are getting a mastery of. The other thing I wanted to address is the possibility of an incorrect code. I had a few students that maybe accidentally pasted, and when they pasted, they accidentally maybe, altered it somehow, put a cursor in here and deleted something or whatever. Just know that all of your codes, they start with an A, they end with a Z, and all the patterns in between should have 5 characters. If you end up accidentally copying the code and pasting it incorrectly, or trying to hand type something in, there's a very good possibility that will be incorrect. And if I get an invalid code, I'm not able to give you then the credit for having done the quiz itself. So I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that that's also a possibility. So for any of the 3 quizzes we've already taken, again, if you did it and you submitted a code to me, and it was at least the right number of questions, you will get full credit for that assignment. Because obviously, I was working out some bugs and probably so were you. Going forward, I wanted to show you the rubric that is going to be used for all musictheory.net skills quizzes. It's going to be based on 2 things, completion and accuracy. So this has 3 possibilities for completion. To get 10 points, student completed the correct number of questions with the correct quiz settings so that the appropriate skills or concepts were tested. Okay. If you have the settings incorrect, then the only possibility is to get a 5 for this category. Student completed all or part of the quiz, but the quiz settings were altered or incorrect, thus the wrong skills were tested. And obviously, if you didn't take it, then that's a 0. The other portion is accuracy. Now, with these assignments, I have said, please aim for a certain number correct. And I said, you can retake it as many times as you need to, try to get the proper amount correct. What I've been aiming for is about 75 to 80% correct on these. If you happen to get 100, that's fantastic. But, just at least a 75 to an 80% mastery is what I'm after. Because you'll gain skills that way, you'll learn something. So you get 10 points if you get all of the questions correct. If you do it in one shot, great. If you have to do it several times, that's fine too. If you took it and you didn't get 100, but it's still, the minimum that I had assigned, that's fine. Then you'll get an 8 for that category. A 5, student did not retake the quiz enough times to achieve the minimum criteria as instructed, or student did not take the quiz. So going forward, you're going to keep seeing this rubric at the bottom of the musictheory.net assignments so that you understand how you're being rated. Now, I happen to put these rubrics at the bottom of the ones that we've already taken, just as kind of a reminder that going forward, this is how I'm going to be rating them. But again, if you did the first three, which was note name quiz number 1, note construction, and note name quiz number 2, if you at least did it, and I can see that you did, at least the minimum number of questions, then you're just fine, okay? But going forward, this is the system that's going to be used. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about was the academic integrity. And what I mean by that is, I'm not stupid. It would be pretty easy to take this quiz and put someone else's name on it and submit it for them. Maybe there are folks that have a harder time with these quizzes than others. I get it, and there's really no way that I could possibly know that that's what's going on. But the problem is, of course, you're not learning anything that way. And later on, when we take a quiz or something that is not in this format, and cannot be submitted by somebody else, you're going to be coming out the wrong end of that because you have not actually tried to go through and learn the skills yourself. So I will just say, I know I shouldn't have to say it, and I probably don't for 99.9% of you, but just do your own work. That's part of the online world now, is that there's a lot of trust between teacher and student, that you're really doing things on your own, and that you're not just doing it to get the work done, but you're doing it so that you actually gain the skills. Even if you're not going to go into music in your life, still thinking through this process and learning the skills improves your knowledge base. It helps you think, okay? So I'm asking you to please make sure that you're extra diligent about that. And I'm also going to say a code word to you, because I suspect, because this is a longer video, some of you are going to click out of it before the end of it. So I'm just going to say to you, rainbow unicorn. So if I ask you that question sometime in the future, please remember that I said rainbow unicorn. And that way I'll know, some of you who actually watched the entire video, then you'll have a little secret. Don't share the secret. That's part of the academic integrity. All right. I love you, chickens. I hope you're doing well. Bye-bye.